name is David Draco, and I am a consultant in the Workforce Strategy and Analytics team at Mercer, based in Chicago. Mercer is a business of Marsh & McLennan, the world's leading professional services firm in the areas of risk, strategy, and people, with 81,000 colleagues globally. Thank you for inviting me to the conference and for giving me the opportunity to talk about our work on equity and justice for global employers. Companies are under intense pressure to address and close their racial and gender pay gaps. More and more companies proactively conduct pay equity analyses to identify and address these issues. Environmental pressures come from different sources and different stakeholders, such as employees, general public, the media, investors, regulations, and social justice movements. We saw an uptick in demand for pay equity studies driven by the social movements such as Black Lives Matter and Me Too movement. New regulations in the United States, such as Equal Pay for Equal Work Act in Colorado, increase pay transparency. In Illinois, the Equal Pay Act, the new laws require private sector employers to disclose workforce demographic and pay information. On the other side of the Atlantic, employers in the UK already have a yearly gender average pay gap reporting obligation. Also, companies and investors increasingly prioritize environmental, social, and governance issues. Here is an example of investors' pressure with regards to pay equity. Arjuna Capital is an investment firm focused on sustainable and impact investing. They published this year the 4th edition of the Racial and Gender Pay Scorecard. The scorecard is a quantitative assessment of current pay disclosures, performance, and commitments among US corporations. In the table here, you can see that companies are graded and they receive grades like at school from A to F. And many companies with the best grades, A and B, are actually Mercer's clients. We work on pay equity studies for over 100 clients per year, mostly global corporations. But it doesn't mean that we have one global model and one size-fits-all approach. We have a consistent approach, but we localize it. We use location-specific modeling to account for different culture and different pay philosophy. We find that in Asia, employers value the general experience of employees more than in the US. And this outside of company experience is a more important driver of pay differences there in Asia. Results vary by country for the same company. And we often find that the more discretion, the higher the pay gap. And the more prescribed the role is, the less of a pay gap we're going to find. Pay equity outcomes are often driven by career equity outcome. So we conduct internal labor market analyses to assess and predict talent flows, as well as to track representation and race, ethnicity, and gender. We often find that women and people of color do not have the same career opportunities, and they are not represented well in the higher up the hierarchy of a company, and they're not represented in the higher levels. And this underrepresentation of women and people of color at higher levels is a reason for persistent raw pay gaps. Let me talk now about a different dimension of equity and justice: the living wage. The concept attracted more attention recently, as many employers are struggling to attract and retain talent. It is very relevant in the current tight labor market conditions. Why the living wage? Because the federal minimum wage in the US, for example, is $7.25 an hour, and it does not cover basic living expenses. And in most cases, in most countries, the minimum wage does not cover basic life necessities. Employers' living wage reflects the cost of living in certain locations where their employees work, and employers' values. Because what is the living wage? The living wage is different, and it has different levels for a single adult or a family of two or a family with kids, and it is a philosophical choice to choose the right family profile. On the right-hand side, you can see a recent client work example These are living wage estimates by two family profiles for a single adult, as well as two adults, only one working with two kids. The estimates for Mumbai in India, Warsaw, Poland, and Brisbane, Australia were calculated by Mercer colleagues, and the New York County estimate in the US, that's Manhattan, is taken from the MIT living wage calculator. And you can see that the living wage levels differ a lot by country, right? In Mumbai, $3,352 is enough to survive the whole year, but this is not going to cover the living expenses in New York City, where $45,000, $282 a month is required to survive and cover the basic expenses. And kids are expensive, right? Childcare and supporting the whole family is more expensive than just a single adult. Therefore, the estimates for two adults, one working with two kids, are much higher. In some cases, even twice higher. So we're helping our clients determine what is the appropriate living wage level, and then we assess how many employees are making the living wage in the company, and we advise on potential remediation. We tend to find that there is a bigger problem in the manufacturing sector and minimum wage heavy sectors and minimum wage level jobs. And the other dimension of equity and justice, and we think that this is a new big frontier, is health and wealth equity. We know that there are racial disparities in health outcomes in America, and we're working with clients trying to address racial disparities in health outcomes and retirement readiness by looking at benefits utilization and 401k plan participation. And so employers are now more cognizant of these disparities, and they would like to assess these things through racial and gender perspective as well. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation. If you have any questions, please contact me via email, and you can learn more at mercer.com.